Hello, I'm Dinah Melville, and I'm CIPFA's Governance Advisor, leading the CIPFA Better Governance Forum. At CIPFA, we think it's very important for Audit Committee members to get training and support in their role, and so I do hope you'll find that this webinar useful. It's a short webinar, and we think it'll be of particular benefit for new Audit Committee members. It'll provide an introduction to internal audit. If you're new to being on an audit committee, you may not have worked directly with internal audit before, but you are likely to know that internal audit plays a major role in the work of the committee. You may still be uncertain about this role and how the audit committee should interact with them. This webinar will clear up those basic questions and provide pointers for finding out more. So what is there internal audit? Fundamentally, internal audit is there to help the organisation. Its primary role is to provide assurance so that managers, the audit committee and everyone in a governance role can know that things are going as intended. Although internal audit is part of your organisation, whether it's an in-house team or whether it's a contracted service, it doesn't directly manage or deliver the services it audits, so it is able to take a more independent and objective view. This means that sometimes risks are looked at in a different way or in more depth, and as a result, internal audit is able to make recommendations to improve operations. The quote in the blue box is from the definition of internal audit in the public sector internal audit standards. I'll be mentioning the standards again later, as they are a key area that audit committee members need to understand. Depending on which part of the UK public sector you're in, there are regulations that mandate internal audit. For example, local authorities. For each local authority, each government sets statutory regulations that requires them to have internal audit, although it is up to the organisation to decide how this is provided. If you're not sure what regulations or statutes affect your organisation, ask your head of internal audit. So what does internal audit do? What does providing assurance mean in practice? When they review an area, internal audit will plan their work to test how well things are going and whether the particular objectives are being met. For example, auditors will evaluate how well risks are being managed and whether there are the right controls in place to protect assets or to maintain the integrity of information. Audits can be very wide-ranging. Traditionally, people think of auditors as just looking at financial matters, but for many years now, the work of internal audit is much broader. For example, an auditor may look at how contracts are being managed or how comprehensive performance data is. They can look at anything from IT controls to safeguarding arrangements or governance. One of the key features of an internal audit is that there will be a clear conclusion in the form of an audit opinion, and where required, audit will make recommendations for improvement. I mentioned standards earlier, and the public sector internal audit standards apply across local government, health and central government bodies, and across all parts of the UK. Professional standards of internal audit have been around a long time in the UK public sector, but from 2013 there has been a common set of standards in place. These are based on international internal audit standards, but have been adapted to meet the needs of the UK public sector. Your organisation is required to ensure that its internal audit service works to the standards, and the internal audit team must have regard for them. So it is important that standards are recognised and understood by the audit committee as well. As for any professional discipline, Standards are in place to help ensure the quality, consistency, accuracy of the work undertaken, so they should be taken seriously and valued for the benefit that they bring. So, is your internal audit team doing a good job? If we start with the standards, there are requirements for the internal audit team to have a quality and improvement programme and to report annually whether they are in conformance with the standards. Knowing that your team does conform with the standards is the first step to considering how effective they are. One important part of the quality and improvement programme is the requirement to have an external assessment once in every 5 years. This means that you get the benefit of an internal audit expert reviewing and advising your team. When you consider the effectiveness of your internal audit team, think about the impact it has. Is it making a difference? Hopefully, you will be able to point to recommendations that internal audit has made or advice that they've given that has led to improvements in services or prevented losses. As an audit committee, effectiveness is an important area for you to consider, and it is worth building up a picture of how well internal audit works. If there are problems, think about what the audit committee can do to help. So what about your own role? You don't need to know the standards inside out, but you do need to have some appreciation of the key areas so you can provide internal audit with the proper support. Talk to the internal audit team. Get to know the challenges they're facing and how they operate. This will really help when the committee discusses the internal audit plans and performance reports. The output of internal audit will feature on your audit committee agenda, and where significant weaknesses in control are identified, then take the time to understand the issues. This is one area where the audit committee can make a real difference by following through audit recommendations with the responsible service manager and helping to ensure that improvements are actually implemented. Talk to internal audit about the risks, priorities, challenges facing the organisation, and understand how internal audit's plans fit in. Your head of audit will welcome your views and will use them to inform his or her risk-based audit plan. If internal audit is performing its job well, that's a massive benefit to the audit committee. It's likely that internal audit will want to support the committee in other ways too. They can provide you with guidance and briefings to help you understand a range of risks and new developments. They may also be able to provide you with training or help you work alongside the audit committees of neighbouring organisations. Helping the audit committee to work well is a win-win for internal audit. It helps internal audit to work more effectively to the standards, and it improves the overall governance and control environment. So, where can you go to next? There are further resources from CIPFA that can support you in your role as an audit committee member and tell you more about internal audit. I've given you a link to our website, so that can be your starting point. In particular, look for our briefings, Audit Committee Update. These can support your understanding about internal audit and keep you up to date with current developments and other areas of good practice. You can also download the standards, the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, from the CIPFA website. I hope this webinar has answered some of your questions and given you a clearer idea of how the Audit Committee can work with internal audit. And I hope you will find these other resources helpful too. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.